Hello and welcome. My name is Nathan Olande. Thank you for showing interest in my practice. In this video presentation, I will be providing you with more information about myself, my areas of interest, the modalities that I use, how I practice and or navigate integrative and functional medicine, what my approach to care is, as well as how you can get in contact with me for those that want to work with me. So let's begin. So I am a holistic nutrition, integrative and functional medicine, and manual osteopathic practitioner. I also completed the Certified Natural Products Advising course through the Canadian Health Food Association. This program was created in collaboration with the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in Toronto, Ontario. I have approximately a decade of experience in the health and wellness field, part of which also includes I've managed and assisted in an integrative medical pharmacy, both for the natural medicine side and the conventional care side. I am the recipient of some awards. If you want to pause the video and read about them, by all means, but if not, we're just gonna continue to go ahead. So my areas of interest include preventative health. So people that want to make better nutrition and lifestyle choices or practices, but want to do that in a way that is sustainable and can result in long-term changes. I work with people that are struggling with drug nutrient depletion. So these are individuals that taking medications for long periods of time can sometimes result in certain side effects. Some of those side effects can come from certain medications decreasing certain nutrient levels, and there are several mechanisms by how that works. I am also a proud member of the LGBTQIA2S+ community, and I'm here to help my community in terms of their health-related concerns. This practice is huge when it comes to gut health, as you can see with my organ shirt and all. I'll be talking more about why this practice takes a gut-centered approach, so to say, or a gut-focused approach. And then people who are struggling with poor energy and fatigue, mitochondrial dysfunction, hormonal imbalances, or dysregularities associated with the brain and mental health. For individuals struggling with managing their cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar and weight. I love to offer my help and support there as well. If any of you have met me or have been a patient in my practice, you'll know that I am a huge molecular biology and biochem nerd. And so when it comes to discussing methylation and detoxification genomics, I like to make it fun and nerd out. And so if you want to nerd out, come and join me. Um, I do some integrative oncology. It's mainly adjunctive support with diet and lifestyle, but do more with autoimmune conditions in my practice. Osteopathically, I help support people with headaches, migraines, TMJD, so temporomandibular joint disorder, neck and back pain, stiff and aching muscles or joints, muscle spasms, and provide visceral manipulation that helps with GI symptoms, breathing difficulties, and help people with postural imbalances. So the three main modalities that I use within my practice are holistic nutrition, integrative and functional medicine, as well as manual osteopathy. And so integrative medicine is um, just kind of the approach where we can mix conventional medicine, therapeutic stuff with some of the natural things or the complementary and alternative things. And so I feel like functional medicine takes that a step further, and functional medicine really provides us with a lens of perspective as to how we can, or a model of how can we address the root cause and not just the symptoms using a systems approach. I'm in a great appreciation of integrative medicine. Sorry, I can't speak apparently. Um, but I think sometimes we need to take that a bit of a step further. That being said, about integrative medicine, I don't believe that conventional is the best. I don't believe that natural is the best. For me, it's all about what are the pros and cons, what are the benefits to risks that apply to an individual. And sometimes conventional medicine is the best way to go, and sometimes natural medicine is the most optimal way to go for an individual, right? So it's all about contextualizing the information for an individual and providing personalized care along that way. Um, with functional medicine, it kind of, well, we'll be going through a case study to kind of describe what that systems approach looks like. Um, but once I know what the root cause is versus what the symptoms are, I can make recommendations for lifestyle, nutrition, supplements, some of which are botanicals or botanical formulations, um, labs, and or even sometimes work with your doctor in making sure that you get the appropriate conventional care possible. The holistic nutrition side just is giving me the education and training to help people with the implementation. How can I support you making with the integrative and functional medicine recommendations that I had made? So holistic nutrition is great at that, and then manual osteopathy is just adding a physical modality into all of it, helping incorporate embodiment throughout the therapeutic process. And so manual osteopathy is a another modality of healthcare that practices from the philosophy that the body is interconnected, it has the ability to heal, and that its structure dictates its function, which is I find like the physical side to functional medicine in terms of approach. As manual osteopathic therapists, we provide OMT or osteopathic manual therapy or osteopathic manipulative therapy, and some of which include mobilizations and muscle energy techniques. So these are things similar to that of, like, let's say, chiropractic and physiotherapy. We also do soft tissue techniques similar to that of massage, but what makes osteopaths special, so to say, is that our ability to blend those physical things with some of these other modalities like visceral manipulation and craniosacral osteopathy. So, yeah, those are the modalities that I practice. And so, what does integrative and functional medicine care actually look like? And so, I'll be providing you with my approach as to how I navigate all of it. And so let's say we're going to pick as an example of a condition hypothyroidism. We know that the GI, the gastrointestinal system, plays a huge role when it comes to our thyroid health. We know that the intestinal cells or the enterocytes um, deal heavily with some of the thyroid conversion, especially whatever the liver cannot convert. These cells take the place, but these cells are also really, really important because they help us with not only the absorption of the different minerals and amino acids and vitamins and things that are needed to help convert thyroid hormone. Gastrointestinal function is really important because that's also the site where we actually absorb thyroid hormone. And so another thing that we need to consider with hypothyroidism is detoxification. We know that when there are imbalances of microbes within the gut, these microbes can produce these byproducts or these metabolites that can actually affect the liver and how efficient it can be in terms of converting thyroid hormone from T4 to T3. We also know that if there is some form of microbial dysbiosis present or an imbalance where we have more of the either um, commensal, opportunistic, pathogenic microbes within the gut, that those metabolites or those byproducts that they produce can actually worsen nutrient insufficiencies. We sometimes need higher levels of nutrients to help us process thyroid hormone. And if microbes are causing for leaky gut or more increased intestinal hyperpermeability, then we're just not going to have as well that hormone conversion taking place. We also know that having poor detoxification in conjunction to dysbiosis within the gut can perpetuate low-grade chronic inflammatory responses, which then can result in an increased expression of people's genetic predispositions to thyroid diseases. Having more inflammation can cause for more thyroid hormone to leak into the bloodstream, and can also result in poor conversion of T4 to T3 and even increase another hormone known as reverse T3, which is one that converts T3 back into T4. And then the culmination of all of this can cause for HPA axis dysfunction, where not only are we having issues with either cortisol production or the lack thereof, there's also a dysmetabolism portion to this. And we also know that when cortisol goes up, for the stress, the physiological stress associated with poor gut function, detoxification, and inflammation, cortisol can actually suppress thyroglobulin, which is the main backbone protein structure that helps us create thyroid hormone. And so, knowing all of these things can take place within a person or an individual that may have hypothyroidism, what does a treatment plan somewhat look like? And so, the steps of how we can potentially address this is first and foremost look towards the gut. We know that there was a study that showed and found a correlation between patients that had hypothyroidism and SIBO. I think there was an 80% correlation there. And so what we know is that if the microbes of the gut are off, it's most likely going to be affecting your thyroid health and function. We also know again that the having an overgrowth of microbes affects our detoxification and inflammatory response. So if I try to work on both of those things without really seeing whether or not we have something happening within the gut, we're not really addressing the root cause. And so once I address, let's say, the gut and get rid of some of the dysbiosis or overgrowth that might be present there, our next steps are to focus on detoxification and decreasing the inflammation. And so during the steps, we might provide, nutrients and botanicals to help unblock certain detox pathways or make them more efficient in terms of how they work. We might use, the same or a combination of nutrients and botanicals to help normalize immune function and decrease inflammation, especially in an autoimmune hypothyroid based situation. We will also use individualized or personalized food, diet, and nutrition recommendations that not only addresses inflammation, but might even affect certain parts of thyroid physiology like leptin resistance. Um, and then as we're doing that, we can, maybe for lifestyle incorporate some form of spirituality or stress management techniques. A lot of the times, when people have HPA axis dysfunction associated with their hypothyroidism, they need to learn the tools or have access to resources in terms of how to manage their stress. Sometimes we can add more nutrients, botanicals, or even uh, more dietary and lifestyle modifications. And if we've addressed the gut, worked on the detoxification and the inflammation and balancing the other steroidogenic hormones, and that isn't sufficient, sometimes we need to deep dive further and see if there's other things that could be a factor here, like different environmental toxicants. So whether we're talking about PCBs, heavy metals, etc. And so let's go through a case study to see what this kind of looks like. Okay, so we have a 43-year-old female presenting with symptoms of depression, fatigue, and digestive symptoms. Her digestive symptoms are more IBS-M, so mixed IBS. So she has a combination of diarrhea and constipation, but it's more predominantly constipation. And she's been also struggling with persistent weight gain. It didn't matter how many times a day she exercised or what she ate, how much of a calorie restriction she was in. Things were not happening. And so she went to her doctor. Her doctor, ordered TSH, T4, T3, and they found that this patient had hypothyroidism. And so she had been on Synthroid anywhere ranging from 75 to 100 micrograms, sometimes even 125 micrograms a day for approximately 2 years with no changes in her symptoms or her symptomatology. And so when she came and saw me, we found that she had tried an elimination diet as recommended by a naturopathic physician, and that didn't result in any changes to her symptoms. This individual had no form of stress management or coping strategies to help her out through stressful times or situations. Because of the severe depression, she hasn't been able to exercise. There was also the symptoms of lack of motivation and the fatigue. When we look at her childhood and her teenage years or her youth, we find that there's a strong history of chronic antibiotic usage. She also, with another clinician, tested positive for SIBO as well as fungal dysbiosis. When we look at certain lab markers, we see that she had subclinical elevations in her um, highly sensitive C-reactive protein and erythrocyte sedimentation rate, or ESR. These two markers are associated with inflammation. She had low levels of B12, B6, zinc, iron, and magnesium. Her blood glucose was elevated. When they did a lipids panel, her triglycerides and LDL was elevated. When she did additional hormone testing, they found We found that her cortisol in the morning was high, her cortisol in the evening was low, and she had low urinary 24-hour cortisol, meaning she wasn't metabolizing cortisol as well as she should have. She also did both a heavy metal as well as another environmental toxicant panel, and they found elevated levels of mercury, lead, and PCBs. And so the first step that we did with this patient was we prepped a lot of their detox and metabolic pathways using specific nutrient supplementation, so things like B5, B6, magnesium, etc. We prepared a custom botanical formula for this patient that focused on detoxification as well as the adrenals. We utilized a comprehensive probiotic protocol in conjunction to a low FODMAP diet for this patient. The patient was also advised to get at least 10 minutes of movement daily and was provided with education tools and resources on how to manage their stresses and all. And so, after 1 month of doing these things, the patient noted only a 30% improvement in her gut and mood symptoms in terms of both the severity and the frequency. And she was a bit discouraged because she only lost a pound during that time. And so, once we kind of addressed those things, first we then started to jump in and use antimicrobials and binding agents to address the dysbiosis. And the reason why I don't address dysbiosis head on and I like to focus on these other things primarily is a lot of the times I like to limit the use of antimicrobials. Sometimes they can have a negative effect on the gut microbiome by also killing the beneficial bacteria, even though it happens at um, in a response that's not as drastic as antibiotics, it still can occur. For people with plugged up detox pathways, taking antimicrobials can worsen the histamine response or the detox response that can take place. And so sometimes an individual, if we visualize them as a tree, the rotting root could be the dysbiosis, but they have the burning branch of the HPA axis dysfunction, the detoxification, and the adrenals, and all that other stuff. And so sometimes what we have to do is stabilize things first before we can get into the root cause. And I'll be delving into that a bit more as we go through this case study. And so, like I said, going back, we prepped the detox pathways, we prepped certain metabolic pathways, we tried to address the gut using an intervention that did not require antimicrobials, but some studies show could be as equivalent in terms of efficacy, and only got a 30% improvement. And so we started antimicrobials in the binders, and once she went through 3 months of that, her gut symptoms completely ameliorated, so she did not have any gut symptoms anymore. And her mood symptoms improved by 50 to 60%. And within the 3 month period, she lost 20 pounds and gained more energy. Once we finished that phase of the antimicrobials and the binders, we started fine tuning her nutrients, making sure that those nutrient insufficiencies that we initially saw were starting to be corrected. And then we also started to focus on really balancing her cortisol and her cortisol metabolism issues. And so the totality in terms of the severity and frequency of her symptoms improved. She would have 1 to 2 episodes per month where her mood, fatigue, and her GI symptoms would flare, but um, 1 to 2 episodes in a month, 2 month period isn't so bad. And so just knowing that things were there and they were slight, we wanted to make sure that we did stuff for detoxification and making sure that we got rid of the mercury and the lead, or lowered her total load of mercury, lead, and those PCBs. And as we were working on doing so, we also started fine tuning more the diet and lifestyle, right? There's so many things that we can do with supplements to help biochemically manipulate things, but if we're not changing the diet and lifestyle, we're not going to be getting those sustainable long-term changes that we can see with an individual. And so, for the most part, currently this patient has no symptoms. They are maintaining their health, potentially with 1 to 2 supplements, but mainly they're maintaining their health with what they learned with diet and lifestyle. I saw the patient recently, a few weeks ago, and it was just to kind of help with some premenopausal symptoms, but a lot of that has already ameliorated or improved. And so my secret to integrative and functional medicine is going to be is this. My five R's are: number one, first we need to refine the diet and lifestyle and make sure that the foundations and the basics in terms of these healthy practices take place. Um, so prepping the detox systems, addressing nutrient insufficiencies, calming the immune system, and balancing the hormones a bit. We do that for approximately 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of the times, for the most part, patients will notice anywhere from 30 to 40% in terms of improvement. It's very, especially for the first month, it's really hard to find a patient that improves um, within that time. The highest was, let's say, 60%, right? And then once we do those first 4 to 6 weeks of refining and prepping and all that other stuff, then we really start the deep work of addressing what's in the gut. And so, like I said, sometimes you can use a comprehensive probiotic protocol with a therapeutic diet, like a low FODMAP diet. In this particular case and situation, that didn't work with that person, and so we had to go into deeper interventions, like utilizing antimicrobials. A lot of people will use binders during that time, but sometimes we need to add antibiofilm agents. Sometimes we need to take a break from that and address detoxification. So it really depends upon the individual. But step number one, refine the diet and lifestyle. Step number two, restoring the gut. And then steps number 3 to 5, they're not set. So depending upon what happens after we've addressed and worked on gut health, we might work on repleting and rebalancing nutrient insufficiencies and hormone and immune and nervous system function. We might see whether or not environmental toxicants are still playing a role in this individual's health. And then either in between those or after gut health or whenever it's deemed appropriate or necessary, we have to reassess and refine these things, right? And so my goal and my wish and my prayers, when I try to provide integrative and functional medicine care to the best of my ability, is to help people live their best lives. And I tell this all the time to either patients who are interested in my practice or patients who are in my practice. Um, I want them to take control of their own narrative and write their own stories, and be able to take the knowledge and the wisdom of what they learned and share it with others, so that we can continue this cycle of helping others become whole again. And that's, to me, what the true purpose of healing is. And so my approach to care, um, basically, is just the this next few slides are just going to be talking about some of like the philosophical, ethical, moral things that go behind, go in my mind as I process what to do with a person, and like the true things that are important to me in terms of how I provide care and whatnot. And so I'll be talking about each one of these factors individually as we go along. So first and foremost, I take a biopsychosocial approach. So you are more than your biology. Um, you're more than your genetics and your biochemistry and your physiology and um, your diet and your lifestyle and the different environmental toxicants that affect you. There's a whole psychological, spiritual, energetic side to you. So how your behaviors and your emotions affect your biological health, how a lack of grounding, centering, reflective, meditative, or even relaxation practices can also affect your health. um, how your interaction between other organisms and different electromagnetic fields and forces or other energies and their currents and their charges also affect your health. There's a social side of you, right? Like some people are impacted by the different social determinants of health, or um, different individuals might have different sociocultural norms, right? Depending upon the country of origin or what a particular family was like, right? How we fit in terms of the context of being in community and being in relationship with one another, and how our sense of fulfillment and meaning and purpose and what we do to cultivate joy in all of it is. All of these factors affect health. And so if I were to just focus purely on the biology and the genetics and the physiology and the biochem and all of these physical biological things, then we can only get so far in terms of your healthcare. And so I believe in providing care that not only just addresses that biological aspect, but tries to address the whole encompassing of you as an individual. I believe in having practice that not only provides personalized care, but is heart led and collaborative. And what I mean by that is meeting an individual where they're at, but also reminding them that it's their responsibility to take the lead. Um, for me, a heart led practice means that when I sit down with you and I'm listening to what you are saying and hearing what you are saying, um, I really want to be truly present with an individual. The best healthcare practitioners that I've been with were the ones that were truly present. And, as I was speaking to them, their mind wasn't wandering in another place trying to, come up with a differential diagnosis and things to think of and things to ask. 80% of the times, 90% of the times, if not more, patients know what the problem is and or what the problems are, and they also know what the solutions are to those problems. And so if we just really take the time to listen and be present and not try to figure things out and project things, we can get better clinical results by that. And so this is what heart-led care means to me. Providing care that is also compassionate and humanistic and relational and non-judgmental, I think is important and part of that heart-led care. Nobody wants to go to a person where you talk to them about their problems, and it's kind of like the therapist that just sits there and listens as you talk, right? If there's anything that I've learned from my life or that I know from what I've observed in life, um, that I can share with you, I want to openly share that with you. If we have parallel experiences, right, with several differences, if there are certain things that I found healing, and you're open to me sharing that with you, I'm down, right? Or even just saying, I understand and I can empathize with that experience that you went through, and I'm so sorry, right? Um, as we go along, I'll elaborate more about the affordable and accessible piece to the care that I provide. But I am a very big believer in collaborative healthcare. I can't do it all. I do my best with how I provide the integrative and functional and holistic nutrition care. And I do my very best physically in terms of what I can provide with manual osteopathy and the mobilizations and the organ manipulations and all that other stuff. But at the end of the end of the day, um, my goal is to be able to create partnerships and work in synchronicity with your team of healthcare professionals. I am a big believer in education and empowerment. Teach a person how to fish and not constantly fish for them. As a reminder to the people watching this video and the people that know me, or even just patients who are still under my care, I am not your doctor. I do not heal you. Your body heals you. The only thing that I am here to do is to help support you and navigate and guide you as you go along this journey. And how I do that is, providing you with as much education as possible, providing you with as much information as possible so that you can feel empowered to be independent in making your own healthcare decisions with confidence, but then also learn the limitations of where you need to ask for help. Part of, education and empowerment and collaborative care is forming interdependence or states of interbeing with one another, right? We grow individually, but we also help um, other people's grow, right? And how I also want to help people with education and empowerment is help facilitate building relationships with their bodies. Again, I think, we've healthcare at this current state and time is a system that has taken a lot of people's power or has caused for the perception that a lot of people's power has been taken. And so by helping people rebuild a relationship with their body to learn how to listen to their symptoms and learn how to process emotions and whatnot, I really want people to take their power back. um, you go to your doctor, you try to ask for help, and he tells you what to do. A lot of the times it's either swallowing a pill, but there's no actual, like, you are actually not involved in your care, right? And as a patient within the system myself, I have completely and totally experienced this and have had to advocate for myself. And so I really want to teach people how to take their power back. And part of the education and empowerment process for me is, to also provide, again, recommendations and results that cause for more long-lasting changes as opposed to constantly having to see an individual or a clinician. Let's talk about gut-centered care for a bit. So the gut affects a lot of things in the body. We talked about how it affects your immune system. We know that the gut can affect your cardiometabolic health, your hormones, your brain health, and neurotransmitters. We know that a lot of how your hormones and neurotransmitters are synthesized and are metabolized, or even stay within homeostasis or balance, is but they're both heavily influenced by the gut, right? And so when we have gut dysbiosis, or if we have an overgrowth of more of these opportunistic pathogenic species versus the beneficial ones, people can experience symptoms associated with low grade chronic inflammation. Um, People can have experiences that are or symptoms that are not necessarily GI based, right? And so if you're not absorbing things as well as you should be, right, regardless of whether or not you have digestive symptoms, you're going to have low energy. You're going to be feeling fatigued. If your gut is dysbiotic and producing metabolites that are both toxic and inflammatory that poison the mitochondria, you're going to have low energy and feel fatigued, right? If your gut is dysbiotic, um, then we know that several gut bugs can actually produce something known as beta glucuronidase that can break down some of our packed up estrogen and our bile salts and cause for us to reabsorb things, right? And so people who are struggling with estrogen dominance, this could be a thing. The physiological stress of low grade chronic inflammation associated with gut dysbiosis is enough to affect how you perceive and or manage stress with your HPA axis, right? We also know that some of the enzymes that are needed to help metabolize and balance those hormones, like 11-BHSD, um, and some of uh, these other enzymes like aromatase and whatnot, could also come from the gut, right? 70% or 80% or more of how your body processes and absorbs tryptophan to then be able to convert it into 5-HTP, serotonin, and melatonin is associated with your gut. So, and as well as how your gut creates GABA, right, in terms of neurotransmission. And so, for people that are dealing with depression or anxiety or insomnia, they may not have gut symptoms, but um, that could be the root cause as to why they're dealing with these issues, right? We know that lipopolysaccharide found within arteriosclerotic plaque has been associated with dysbiosis within the gut, right? So having elevations in your cholesterol can cause for inflammation and dysfunction within your cardiometabolic system. We know that if you have dysbiosis in the gut, some of these bugs can actually eat up your carnitine and your lysine and those different amino acids and then produce an inflammatory molecule known as TMAO that can increase your blood pressure, right? And then if you're already having either poor detoxification genes or have had several encounters with different environmental toxicants, having gut dysbiosis where they're producing more toxins can actually further plug up detoxification pathways, leading to more poor detoxification. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not you have gut symptoms or issues. If we don't address your gut as a primary, um, we're not getting anywhere in terms of your health, right? So this is why I have a gut-centered practice, and this is why I start with the gut always first, is to address these things and to make sure that things are happening the way that they should. Um, the other thing that I wanted to say about the gut, just trying to remember. Oh yeah. So I remember reading a study quite a while ago, and they found that 100% of the participants met the criteria of what these researchers defined as dysbiosis. So when they looked at their stool, um, and what the researcher said, okay, if this is present within the stool, then a person has dysbiosis. 100% of the participants, based upon that definition of dysbiosis, tested positive for it. And only 20% of participants had intestinal symptoms. The 80% had what we call extraintestinal symptoms, so symptoms not related to the GI tract. And so what I find is that this is really, really important because when we look at the statistics of I'm just going to talk about Canada for a second. When we look at the statistics in Canada of individuals affected by, IBS, IBD, functional digestive conditions or disorders, or the people that miss out on work on a daily basis, 20% of those are digestive related. And so knowing that that is the real life statistic that is taking place and what the study has shown, we can see that um, only 20% of people who walk in our doors as clinicians will further dysbiosis will present with gut stuff. Otherwise, um, it could just be depression, anxiety, or difficulty managing detoxification, etc. Right? So if you like what I've said and you want to work with me, this is the partner process. For all of the information that will be here, I will also put a link in the description box below for how an individual can work with me if they want to read it. But I'm just gonna break it down and add a bit of my commentary to it. So the first step for anybody is I do a discovery call. Um, I I'm I know I'm not for everybody, and that's a-okay with me. Um, and so the discovery call, the 20-minute discovery call, is to kind of help determine or figure out whether or not we're a good fit for each other, and if not, there are other amazing clinicians and practitioners within Alberta and the rest of Canada that I know that I could refer you to. Right? I just want what's best for you, and if I'm not what's best for you, that's okay with me. Okay. And if you decide to work with me, then the next step is to fill the initial consultation form and to submit your labs prior to booking your initial session with me. And so after the 20-minute discovery call, I'll send you the forms. If you have your lab results, you can send them to me, or you can send me an email with your healthcare information, and I can get access to those labs. If these lab results have been older than 6 to 9ish months, then I do highly suggest that you get a repeat of these labs. So these are the tests that I recommend for my baseline that I typically deal with people. And so you can either go to your primary care provider, so you're either your family physician or your nurse practitioner, and they can order these labs for you. If not, some people have either difficulty accessing their primary care provider or have been faced with medical trauma, or their medical providers just gaslights them, right? Um, so if you need another person to just get the requisition for you so you can get these tests, go see Frankie Ma. He's a functional medicine pharmacist at the medicine shop in Meadowlark. Again, I'll also put his contact information below so you can click that. If you do decide to go and get your blood work through Frankie or through your primary care provider, please let me know the day that you get your blood drawn, or the day of when you get your blood drawn. That way I can um, be in contact with the individuals who send me your labs. We can impede delay as much as possible. So once you've done the discovery call and then you've submitted your labs and you've done you've filled out your initial consultation form, then through the Practice Better website you can book your initial consultation. The initial consultation lasts anywhere from 60 to 75 minutes, and it'll include a review of your intake form, your labs, and then I'll be giving you an overview and some more education about my clinical impressions of what might be going on and what your personalized lifestyle, diet, nutrition, supplements, labs, and follow-up care will look like. Sometimes additional labs might be requested, whether that might be a functional lab or a conventional lab through, again, your physician or through Frankie. We will discuss that then. And then once we're done with that and I give you your initial consultation, there are several ways that, or your initial recommendations, there are several ways that you can work with me. I also want to note that my practice is highly dependent on technology for both booking and payment and all of those things. And so if you're having a hard time accessing or utilizing technology, then most likely I will refer you out to somebody else that doesn't have those requirements. Okay, so going back after that little intermediate technology talk, ongoing care or follow-up care afterwards can happen in one or two ways. You can either do like the direct wellness plan, or we can do a pay per fee service. So that really is dependent up to you. In the next slide, I'll be discussing that further. But also for people that want me to collaborate with their clinicians or their other healthcare providers, you can send them the Practice Better link, and they can book a free 20-minute consultation with me where we can have that discussion. So, what is the difference between the direct wellness plan and the pay per fee service? So, for the pay per fee service, um, any form of visit or modes of communication are charged as per the use of that service. And so, if you need to see me for nutritional counseling or manual osteopathy, or want you want to send me an extensive email that requires an extensive response, or every time you need a phone call or video conference me, you'll be charged for those as individual sessions. Um, Priority booking will be given to those who are of the subscription model. The wellness library and educational resources that I will be creating, um, that people can subscribe to. You'll have to subscribe that, like your services and your subscription for those things um, can't be bundled together. And your family members, if you're under the same household, they have to pay for their own individual follow up care if that's what you require for the individual pay per fee service. And so for those that are wanting to, use the direct complementary wellness or the direct wellness care program, um, it's a 12-month commitment. An individual pays $85 per month, and they get unlimited visits, emails, texts, phone calls, unlimited. They can book as many sessions as they need with me for both the nutrition and functional medicine as well as the manual osteopathy. I will do my best, and I commit to same week appointments. So if you contact me within that week and need an appointment, we'll make sure that that happens. I will be creating a wellness library and educational resource program. So that'll have everything on, what are the principles of a healthy diet and lifestyle? What does, everything I know about gut health, cardiometabolic health, detoxification, mood and mental health, and neurology stuff and hormones. And I just want to make and create a resource where um, individuals can access that. Sometimes they speak fast, or I get really, really excited and nerdy when it comes to the science. And so um, the Wellness Library and educational resource gives people the opportunity to access that. But then I also want to make it interactive and provide people with handouts and worksheets and the notes so that people can learn how to implement those things. So it's not just providing you with the information; it's also helping you with the implementation of that information. For people who are doing the subscription-based model, if they have other family members living under the same household, after that family member goes through an initial consultation, um, they could be added under that other family member's plan at a discounted rate or a discounted fee. And so this for people who are less than or equal to 18 years of age, that would be $35 a month, and people over 18 would be $55 a month. So thanks for watching. Thanks for again showing interest in my practice and for taking the time to learn a bit more about me and what I do. I hope that we can, work with each other in the future. Or again, if you need somebody else, I'm always down to offer a referral. But if you guys have any other questions or concerns or want to learn more about me, I'll include all of the links in the description box below. So thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye.